In the 95th year of the 4th dynasty of Egypt, a time marked by the ancient rulers of the Old Kingdom, something extraordinary occurred. Pharaoh Rama-tut descended from the heavens, his arrival nothing short of a divine event. He came on a mysterious craft, a wonder made of stone and metal, bearing the shape and guise of rama-tut, the great Sphinx. Within a mere week, the pharaoh had conquered all the lands of Egypt. The 4th dynasty came to a swift end, and from its ashes rose a new era, the dynasty of Kang. Rama-tut's radiance was said to be beyond description, his power unmatched, and his magic was vast, blessed by all the gods. His will was as deadly as the sun itself, casting a shadow over all those who dared challenge him. This was the legend of Pharaoh Rama-tut. But there was a truth they did not yet know, a truth they had never seen. The moon, silent and ever-watching, spoke these words. "His eye is upon you, foreigner. Rama-tut may be the sun, but you are called by the moon." This was the moment that marked the beginning of a new tale. The moon, a symbol of mystery and power, had its own story to tell, and the one it called was destined to change everything. This was only the beginning of Kang's journey, a journey where even the greatest rulers could not escape the forces that shaped fate. The moon had spoken, and in its quiet, elusive way, it had promised something far more profound than the sun could ever offer. Nathaniel, filled with uncertainty, called out, "Hey, wait up. Thank you for helping me. But I have to know, who sent you? How do you know who I am?" The moon, calm and unwavering, responded, "The voice of the night speaks only the truth. A hero from beyond time will come soon, descending from the sky to restore the ancient ways and end the pretender's reign." Nathaniel, still confused, asked, "The pretender? Okay, this is very bad." As they spoke, Nathaniel's skepticism grew. "Far be it for me to argue with my savior, but Rama-tut isn't someone you can just hope to overthrow. Trust me, I've studied him for years." The moon's voice was unyielding. "He has enslaved the entirety of creation," Nathaniel replied, trying to reason. "Just Egypt, but that's plenty. It's his war machine against my broken suit armor. I'm sorry, lady, but I'm not the hero you're looking for. You're thinking of Reed Rich." Before Nathaniel could finish, the moon's command rang out. "Silence. You enter the house of a forgotten god. Bury your talk of defeat in the endless sands." In that moment, Nathaniel was confronted with a truth far beyond his understanding. The moon had spoken with the weight of ancient power, and he was being called to something much greater than he could imagine. The moon guided Nathaniel into a castle, its walls ancient and filled with an eerie, timeless power. The moon's voice echoed as it spoke, "For Khonshu will have none of it. Speak your truth before him, sailor of time. Why did you come here?" Nathaniel hesitated before answering, his voice filled with doubt. I was trying to escape the man who made me bow before him." The moon, unyielding and wise, continued, "Then you sought that which cannot be. We all bow before someone. Ravonna bows as an aspect before the moon's king." The name struck Nathaniel like a thunderclap. That name," the moon replied with a hint of clarity, "is mine, Ravonna, the Moon Knight." Nathaniel, overwhelmed by the weight of this revelation, introduced himself simply. "Nathaniel, the Lost." Ravonna, with a voice that seemed to resonate with centuries of power, responded, "None are lost in his house, Nathaniel. Kneel, open your mind to the moon, and see as he does." In that moment, Nathaniel faced a choice to embrace the truth of this strange realm, to kneel before the moon's wisdom, and to see the world through the eyes of the ancient powers that guided it. Nathaniel's voice was heavy with defiance as he spoke. "I do not believe in gods. In my life of conquest, I have crushed countless divine skulls in my hands. But even before I saw fear in the eyes of the god of thunder, I knew better. He paused, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Then suddenly, his mind began to shift, and he heard Kang's voice, cold and unyielding, whispering to him, "Never love." In that moment, Nathaniel's thoughts became clear. The past, the future. Time itself seemed to flow like a river of blood from his mind into Kang's neurokinetic armor. Time and memory surged hot through his veins, intertwining his very being with the essence of Kang. With newfound resolve, Nathaniel swore to be the hero that Ravonna had seen in him. He swore to tear down the ruler who had enslaved the world, to destroy the false god who stood before him. In the shadow of a dead god, he took his revenge. Then, once again, Nathaniel saw Kang in his mind, and Kang's voice echoed with a chilling certainty. "Ravonna, you are ready, boy." In this moment of clarity, Nathaniel realized that his path was set. The time for hesitation was over. He was no longer the lost man. He was ready to face the ultimate power, and in his heart, the struggle had only just begun. Nathaniel's voice grew more resolute as he continued, casting his words in iron. "I had left the time of my birth to seek adventure, heroism and glory, like in those ancient days." He spoke of his journey, his eyes distant with memory. "And in the streets of ancient Memphis, I finally found it. I learned the sound of a laugh, knowing it might be your last, and how another's heartbeat feels when they face certain death." There was no turning back now. Nathaniel had sought rebellion, demanded an escape from the chains of fate. And in that search, he found something unexpected: joy. In the heart of danger, amidst the chaos of the ancient world, Nathaniel discovered a thrill in defiance, a spark of freedom that could only be found on the edge of death. It was not just adventure he sought, but something deeper, something raw, an awakening to the true meaning of living. In those fleeting moments, he understood the cost of rebellion, the price of freedom, and the bittersweet joy of risking everything for something greater than himself. As they stepped outside the castle, Ravonna and Nathaniel gazed out at the setting sun, the colors of twilight painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Ravonna's voice broke the silence, a question that hung in the air. "In the wen from which you fell, is this place remembered?" Nathaniel's gaze never left the horizon as he answered, "In the time I come from, everything is remembered. Imperfectly perhaps, and always through the lens of the victors, but remembered all the same. That was the problem. When everything's already been done before you, what can your life possibly be worth?" He paused, as if reflecting on the weight of his own words. "But I knew I was destined for more. Even before Kang came to me, I knew." Ravonna's expression was unreadable as she replied, "I have never known a life without destiny. I remember nothing before it. My parents were the will of Khonshu, and they have long ago vanished into the sunlight of my memory. If they were ever there at all." Nathaniel, his curiosity piqued, asked, "Did he give you your name? Your God?" Ravonna's eyes met his, and her voice carried the depth of her timeless existence. My name has always been, but he did give me yours." In that moment, the weight of Ravonna's words settled between them. For Nathaniel, a man from a future where everything seemed predetermined, and Ravonna, a being whose life was shaped by the will of gods, they shared a profound understanding of destiny, its burdens, its weight, and the strange paths it carved through their lives. Kang had once said, "Never love, lest you be conquered." But Nathaniel knew Kang understood nothing of love. He was a creature of hate, of cold ambition. Nathaniel was sure of it. As he spoke, Nathaniel reflected on his own journey. When you are young, it's so hard to see that one is only born from the other, that without love to inspire it, hate is nothing but rage. Anger can be conquered by calm, but like its pathetic cousin, regret, hatred simply feeds. It festers, it makes one ruthless. It drives the preparation of armories and the shattering of centuries. It intertwines with power like a parasite wrapped around the brainstem, controlling and consuming. Then, a vulnerable admission. I've never done this before. Ravonna, her voice soft yet steady, responded, "Neither have I." And in that moment, they kissed, an act that transcended words, as love and hatred intertwined in the fragile space between them. For love makes one blind, and hatred makes one see. It is through that blindness, through the intensity of their emotions, that they fell under Kang's eye. Just then, the pharaoh's robotic form spotted the light of their connection. With cold, mechanical precision, it braced to attack, ready to capture them both and bring them before Rama-tut. The weight of Kang's control was never far behind, and now it seemed to close in like a storm. Their moment of love had made them vulnerable, and now the full force of Rama-tut's reign was about to descend upon them. Rama-tut's voice echoed with supreme arrogance as he addressed them. The incomparable Rama-tut extends his magnanimous welcome to the last malcontents within his 1,000-year kingdom. In gazing upon his majesty, bask in his apotheosis, the very face of Ra. "Guards, take the girl to my pleasure gardens." Ravonna, defiant and unyielding, shouted back with all the fire in her voice, "I'll claw out your eyes before you touch me." But Rama-tut, unfazed and almost amused by her resistance, replied coldly, "Such verve, such drive. Let's do away with all of that." And then, with a cruel precision, he revealed his weapon, the ultra-diode ray, a device of anti-will and enslavement designed to strip away any defiance, to break the spirit. This was Kang's first weapon, and perhaps his cruelest. A weapon designed to goad even the most stubborn of souls. Cruel enough, Nathaniel realized, to prey on a boy in love. In that moment, consumed with anger and desperation, Nathaniel shouted, "Stop this, Nathaniel!" But it was not only a cry for Ravonna. It was a cry to himself, a plea to not let his emotions be twisted by Kang's cruel manipulation. The stakes were high, and Nathaniel knew he was at a breaking point, caught between love, defiance, and the overwhelming power of the man who sought to control everything. Rama-tut's gaze fixed on Nathaniel, cold and calculating. "You," he said, as though trying to make sense of the unexpected presence before him. Nathaniel, unfazed, met his eyes and replied simply, "Me." Rama-tut's voice tinged with intrigue. "Fascinating. I have no memory of this. A divergent timeline, perhaps? A variant? Or a new loop? Which means killing you would no more affect me than the destruction of an alien sun." Nathaniel's voice was calm, but laced with challenge. "But Rama-tut is a footnote in our story. Barely even a prologue. You don't even know our true name. I would think very hard before you execute me. The throat you slit may be your own." Rama-tut paused, his expression shifting as he considered Nathaniel's words. "A point well made," he said, the tension thick in the air. "Killing you is a risk." In that moment, Nathaniel understood that they were playing a dangerous game, one where the fate of both himself and Rama-tut hung in the balance. Nathaniel had struck a nerve, forcing the once unquestionable conqueror to reconsider his next move. And for the first time, it seemed that Rama-tut, the mighty ruler, was not so certain. Rama-tut's voice was cold and calculated as he spoke to Nathaniel. "Using you is a strategy. You are what these locals might call a blessing from the gods, boy. War has come to my lands, but I have the construction of wonders and armories to oversee. But you have given me a second well, me. Go now to the front of my centurion. Shape your armor into something more befitting of your station." Without warning, Rama-tut raised his ultra-diode ray gun and unleashed a blast at Nathaniel. The weapon's power surged through the air, and Nathaniel's mind screamed in pain. His heart bled with the force of the attack. Ravonna could not fight back. She was powerless in the face of such overwhelming might. Yet, Nathaniel did not scream. He had been forged by Kang's hand, shaped in his image. He had already learned that the only end for heroes was death. A harsh lesson, but one he had come to accept. Rama-tut, despite his delusions of grandeur, was no more than a man lost in time, clinging to a kingdom that was already slipping through his fingers. Even Khonshu, the god he claimed to serve, was but a powerful dream, a fleeting illusion. Despite Rama-tut's posturing and his attempts to assert his dominance, Egypt had already been blessed with a living god, a force far greater than he could ever imagine. His name was En-Saba-Nur, and his conquest would last millennia. In that moment, Nathaniel realized the true scope of the battle he was facing. It was no longer just about defeating Rama-tut. The future he was fighting for would be shaped by far greater forces like En-Saba-Nur, whose ambition and power were destined to reshape the world in ways Nathaniel had yet to fully understand. In those ancient days, I first came to understand the true meaning of war. I learned the sound of a scream, one that would be the last. I learned how fear alone could stop a heartbeat, long before death's final blow. Love had once made me blind, but now, it was hatred that opened my eyes. It was hatred that showed me the only path forward. My body, once a vessel for hope, had become a prison, my armor, a cage. And to break free from Kang's suffocating power, both would need to be shattered. Through the excruciating pain of it all, I swore I would have my revenge on Kang. I would tear down everything he had built, destroy his legacy. I will have revenge on Kang, I muttered through gritted teeth. The words became a mantra, a promise to myself. Each repetition was a step closer to fulfilling the vow that burned within me. And then, amidst the chaos of my thoughts, a sudden clarity washed over me. It was the understanding that came in an instant, like a spark in the darkness. Yes, of course. The path was clearer now. The hatred, the pain, it had all led to this moment. The fight for vengeance had become something more, something deeper. It was no longer just about striking at Kang. It was about breaking free from the chains that bound me, both the armor and the man who had shaped me. In the 4th year of the Kang dynasty, heroes from another time descended from the skies. They came not just as warriors, but as agents of change, determined to restore the ancient ways and undo the reign of the pretender. Their arrival marked the beginning of the end for the tyrant who had twisted history to his will. They were a force unlike any Kang had anticipated, and in their wake, the foundations of his empire began to crumble. The pretender's reign, built on manipulation and fear, was over. The true heroes had arrived, and with them, the promise of a new era, one that would no longer be defined by the rule of Kang, but by the restoration of what had been lost. In that moment, everything changed. Within a single day of Rama-tut's escape into the time stream, his empire collapsed into chaos. En-Saba-Nur, the living god of destruction, claimed all that he desired and burned what was left of the once mighty kingdom to the ground. Ravonna, the Moon Knight, was erased from history, like a footprint swept away by the wind. Her name vanished into the sands of time, scattered beyond reach. In those dark days, I told myself a lie. None are lost in the light of the moon. But deep down, I knew better than to believe it. She was gone, as dead as the god she had once served. But Kang was still alive, no longer a pharaoh. He had become a ruthless warlord of the 31st century. His eyes were now set on the 20th, where he would make his first attempt at true conquest. Kang had drilled every detail of his plans into my mind. He had shaped my destiny so that when the time came, I would succeed, his perfect conquest. But in doing so, he had unwittingly crafted the weapon of his own destruction. If only I could cross the sands of time again, I wouldn't be Kang's creation anymore. I wouldn't be his perfected weapon. I would be something more. I come to you humbled, I said, facing the one who might understand. The enemy of your escaped enemy. With your power and my wisdom, together we can destroy Kang. And then, a voice like thunder rumbled through the air. And Sabanur responded, his words carrying the weight of destiny itself. I would be his apocalypse. The destruction of Kang was no longer just a possibility. It had become inevitable. And with that declaration, we set the stage for the final reckoning.